Okay, in our previous video, we went over the basic requirements to perform a direct fire action. And in this video, we're going to go over a few different examples of actually performing a direct fire attack. Now, before you do, make sure you always check your terrain effects chart for any possible defensive bonuses that are going to be applied, and also your direct fire modifiers player aid, because there are many different modifiers that can apply to the attack depending possibly upon range, or if there's an HQ involved, or if you're performing volley fire. There's many different modifiers that can apply, so make sure you read over that chart and check it before you perform your attack. Now, as a basic example here, I've got a T80 laid out that is wanting to perform a direct fire attack against this M1 Abrams. In this case, the T80 is going to use its AP stat, which again is its top left set of numbers, to perform its attack against the M1 Abrams. We see by looking at the counter that it has a range of 12, and the range to the M1 Abrams is 7 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This puts him in the effective fire range, which means there's not a modifier to its to hit number, either positive or negative. Looking again, its firepower stat is a 3, signifying that it has 3 firepower dice to throw. So RT80 for this attack will be rolling 3 dice, looking for 4s on the dice results to score a hit against the M1 Abrams. When we look at the terrain effects chart under the clear hex that this M1 Abrams is in, we can see that it does not provide a defensive bonus to troops or vehicles, so there's not going to be a defensive bonus added to the tank's defense. We'll only be looking at its defensive stat in the lower left-hand corner of the counter. We can see that it gets 4 dice, and it's looking for 5s to score a success on that defensive roll. So as an example, let's say our T80 rolls his 3 attack dice, and he scores 2 successes by rolling 2 4s. Then let's say that our M1 Abrams rolls his defensive dice and doesn't roll that well, and only rolls a single success of a single 6 in his defensive roll. In this case, one of the attacking dice would be nullified by the defensive roll, leaving 1, causing the M1 Abrams to become disrupted. Remember, it's always going to go disruption, then reduction, and then elimination for your hit results. So if you're firing at a soft target, it's going to be handled just a little bit differently. So as another example, let's look again at our T80 wanting to fire at this soft target of the infantry that are located in a wooded hex. We're going to handle this procedure very similar to how we just handled the procedure with the M1 Abrams, in that we're going to count out the range. In this case, we know that it's going to be a range of 8 hexes, which by looking at the tank's HE stat, the upper right set of numbers, we can tell is actually in its long range, which is up to twice its printed range. So the T80 is actually going to have a penalty modifier when performing this attack. It'll add a +1 to its to hit number, making it require a 6 instead of the 5 it would normally require. When you have a soft target like this infantry, you don't have an armor value listed down, which means your defensive roll is only going to come from your terrain rather than from any armor that the unit might have. When we look at the woods on the terrain effects chart, we can see that woods add a defensive bonus of +1d6 for both troops and vehicles, so we do get to roll a defensive die for our infantry. Now, when you have a soft target that's rolling defensive dice like this, their understood hit number that they're looking for is always going to be either a 5 or a 6. So let's say our T80 fires its HE at long range, and it doesn't score too well, but does decent and scores a single hit. Again, it does have that +1 required modifier for its to hit number, meaning it was only going to hit on a 6. So the tank scores a single hit, and now let's say when our infantry roll their defensive dice, they roll their single defense die, and they get a result of a 5. This is going to cancel out the attack from the T80, and there's not going to be any disruption or any other results from it. These are the basics on how you're going to conduct a direct fire attack. We're going to get into a few of the other modifiers a little more specifically in some later on videos, but be sure to make sure and always check that player aid for your direct fire modifiers before you perform an attack, just to make sure that you are applying any modifiers that do apply in the situation.